Record. Shalom, good afternoon from, late afternoon, early evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America, in New York State in 1981, now celebrating our 42nd year. Today is Wednesday, October 18, 2023 in the Gregorian calendar, and it is the third day of the new 8th month of the new Israelite Hebrew year 5784 in the Hebrew calendar. Welcome to episode 18 of our monthly seminar entitled Ancient Roots Mothering, Roots, Nettles, and Sage. The Madam Co-Chairs, I was told the proper way to call ladies is not chairman or chairwoman, but Madam Chair or Madam Co-Chairs, are in alphabetical order Mrs. J. Rivkah Asoulin of the Lower Galilee in Israel, Mrs. Chava Dagan of the Northern Negev in Israel, and Mrs. Gilla Weiss of Boca Raton in Florida. I'm going to skip my usual comments for the introduction and about rainmaking because we're all walking through the bullets. I would just like to say that the work that it's almost like God has been preparing these mothers in Israel just for this time because they're he's well trained in the Jedi arts, it says. And these ladies, natural healers in the Middle Ages, the church called them witches and burned them, didn't want the competition. They knew ancient traditions of healings and herbs and so many things. And from a very Jewish biblical perspective, Rivkah and Chava and Gilla know these things too. And there was a time when all the peoples in the land of Israel, I don't care what your ethnic and religious group, needed a hug and a kiss and a shoulder to cry on. This is it. And these ladies have in their apothecary many weapons that are specifically related to what we're going through now. Without further ado, let me hand over the mic to Chava, Rivkah, and Gilla for some urgent and most appreciated words of advice and comfort in our time of trouble. Ladies, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Lowell Aryeh, a lion of our people. Welcome, everybody. It's been a challenging couple of weeks for Am Yisrael. We are going to tell it to you from the heart today because we didn't have a pre-production meeting. We've been hearing sirens, dodging bullets, I guess. Maybe not literally. I don't know. I'll speak for myself. Maybe Chava has been dodging bullets literally. And poor Gila has been ill. So we wish you a refuah shlema. So today we join you in solidarity. Now I'm going to speak for me, but maybe speak for all of us. You can just nod your heads if I am. Whatever we're about to say here it's what we can give. It's how we can be helpful. What the stuff that we've got, we'll give it. But that doesn't mean that this isn't a challenge for us or that we're not afraid or that we're not dealing with our own issues. It doesn't mean that we are the gurus of all knowledge with Jedi minds throughout all these things. And it sounds like my colleagues here agree with me. So I just want to put that out there, that there's nothing we're going to say that's going to wave a magic wand and make all the fear, pain, concern, reality go away. That we can't do. However, there are certain practical things that we've seen in the past couple of weeks that Am Yisrael might need a little bit of help with, and hopefully we can help. So the first thing is kind of very practical. We do have apothecaries, and we will get to that. But practically speaking, and I'm going to share my screen, which is always fun. Hang on. I'm not going to share the sound for this one, but here you go. I just want you to see this guy right here. And he's just demonstrating for us his mamad door. Look at that. Right here, he's got a little lock that he installed on his door. And that is a really easy solution. People have been asking us, people have been asking each other how they can lock their mamads from the inside, because unfortunately, we've had to consider the possibility in Eretz Israel of potential arm-to-arm combat with having infiltrators in our house. And a really great way to put up a barrier between you and infiltrators would be to go into a safe room if you have it and lock yourself in. So I'm going to show you another very short video, just a moment. This is in Hebrew, but again, very, very short. So, I showed you kind of the easy one. Anyone can go buy a deadbolt lock like that from any hardware store and just install it. But if you're more, do it yourself, like the three of us are, you might take more joy and passion in creating a more do-it-yourself kind of approach. So here, let's have a look at that.
נראה לכם פטנט ממש ממש פשוט, שאי אפשר לפתוח את הדלת של הממד מבחוץ.
Okay, so that's really easy to do. And after the first siren we had here, we heard our neighbor making noise outside. And we went to look outside, and what was the neighbor doing? Exactly that. He had gotten a plank of wood and he was trying to drill a hole into the plank of wood, and he was getting all ready. And this is great because it's something you can do between sirens. It's, making one hole in a plank of wood is a pretty quick and easy job. And the truth is, if you can kind of be'ereth, generally look where that hole should be, you can make it and then actually cut it to the size of your door frame. When you're inside the mamad, bring your saw in, your power tools. It's fun for the whole family. Get everyone involved sawing while you're hanging out in the mamad. Which brings me to my next point. The importance of dispelling helplessness in these situations. So when we feel helpless, we are very, very vulnerable, and we're vulnerable to attack, but we're vulnerable to like trauma, to post-traumatic stress disorder or some other type of trauma. So it's really, really important for us to be able to take away the helplessness. I was at a shiur, a class on our yeshuv, taught by a really sweet man named Levi Smith. And he talked about existential threat plus helplessness kind of can equal all of these trauma problems. And you can't really do anything about existential threats. You can't do anything about invaders in your house. You can't do anything about rockets. You can't do anything about guns. You can't do anything about those threats. But you can do something about the helplessness. And this is why maybe drilling a hole in a plank of wood is more useful to you than going to a hardware store and buying a deadbolt lock. And you can have both too. Another fun thing that I really enjoyed in all of this is going to a hardware store and saying, what kind of solutions have you guys come up with for locking your mamad door? And the hardware store that my husband went to got a metal pipe, and they put like a little piece on it, that like a little washer that has a hole on it, and it slides up and down the pipe. So as long as the pipe is cut to fit your door frame, just like that wooden plank you saw, that little washer that has a hole in it can slide back and forth. I don't know the official names of the stuff. It's like a joint or something that has a hole in it. But you can slide it to where your handle is, and exactly like you saw with the wooden one, place your metal slider thing on top of the handle to hold it in place. So there's so many creative ways of solving these problems, and being able to use our minds is so helpful for preventing trauma, fear, post-traumatic stress disorder. Remembering that our emotional, we have like kind of these two minds that are kind of sometimes fighting for dominance. the logical problem solving, and the emotional reactive side. And so when our emotional reactive side is engaged, like, oh my gosh, there's a threat, sirens, shooting, intruders, dead neighbors, dead. I mean, these are big things and they're real. They're what we're dealing with. That emotional reactive side can win. It can have so much dominance that our problem solving side gets turned off. And we don't want that. So we want to always try, even when things are really emotionally intense, to engage our logical, problem solving, intellectual, side, so that we're looking for solutions, trying not to be helpless, trying to be helpful, trying to come up with solutions. And that will also help temper extreme emotions that might otherwise take dominance. So I'll open that up here for more comments. Chava and Gilla.
Okay, so as horrible and horrific and everything that this thing has brought forth to the whole country, living down where I live, which is 5 miles from the border with Gaza, ever since Gush Katif was pulled out, the Jews that were living in Gaza, we have had to deal with this. Not on this level, thank God, but with the rockets and infiltrations and tunnels and everything up until now. They've tried it, they try it on us. As fun as that's been for the last 20 years, we've learned a lot. We've learned how to cope. We've learned how to, thank God, overcome PTSD, because we all had it. We've learned how to survive. We've learned little tricks. We've learned how to talk about it, how to keep everyone calm, how to stay level-headed, because like you said, the emotional sort of a tornado, right, will get you going in this spiral that you feel helpless to get out of if you don't have the right tools. I remember talking to someone not so long ago, and they, how are you, whatever. Well, at least we don't have Qassam rockets. And I'm like, thank God you don't have Qassam rockets, but I'll tell you something. I'm actually very appreciative of it, because I know really well how to deal with these things. And when you guys get it, God forbid, but when you get it, you won't know what to do. And so a lot of this education that we've gotten has really helped us get through this craziness too. I can still, however, laugh at some point. We have to keep the mood light, because we have children, and you don't want them to go down that same spiral ever, right? I mean, my kids were born in the middle of Qassam rockets, and they've grown up not knowing anything else. There's been spaces of quiet in between, but it's been 20 years of raising children amongst this. So a few of the things that we have done and have come comfortable with is knowing that with the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of rockets that they've shot over here, with God's help, they don't really hit much. So we know that this is way beyond us. I mean, these rockets, they are not missiles. They're rockets, meaning they cannot steer it. They have no guiding system. They have no technology in it, nothing. But after 20 years, they've gotten pretty good at their aim. They know, coordinates and where it's going to land, more or less. And still, thank God, they haven't. Okay. And I'm not saying there aren't casualties. I'm not saying it hasn't. But for the most part, you can see miracles day after day after day, like living miracles right in front of your eyes. So we've come to depend on those. When this kind of thing starts, prayer immediately. Immediately. Everyone, however they want to do it. If it's a group thing, if everyone wants to go off to a corner, take a moment, take 10 minutes, whatever it is, of a really, really connect. And you sort of, we call it the Iron Dome in Israel is our defense system, but you create a real Iron Dome over the area through prayer. At night, when we're going to bed and it's scary to turn off the lights and it's scary not knowing who might come in at night, we have to calm everyone down. I read stories either from the Bible, which is, I mean, the Tanakh, it's filled with our own history in our own land. That is so empowering to children. We've been here. We've done this before. This is nothing new. This is a recycled story of the Torah. And when they sort of get that picture in their heads of their own ancestors and their own heritage, their own traditions, their own connection with the land and with the enemies of the land, I mean, they go to bed soundlessly asleep, no nightmares, no waking up in the middle of the night, no peeing in the bed, you know, all of these things that you normally would expect from children in a situation like this. Those are two huge things. The story of Hanukkah, which is not in the Tanakh, but again, a few Jewish farmers with pitchforks and shovels, right, beating off this huge Goliath. These are stories that go into their subconscious and they stay there. Okay. Being open about it. I don't try to sugarcoat anything. I won't go into the horrific details of, you know, what happens here and there, but they know what is happening. They need to be aware. They know that when I'm walking around with my personal weapon, to always walk behind me, right? These are things that we have to think about. These are things that go into their minds, because God forbid, if I have to pull something out and start shooting or protecting or whatever, they don't want to be in the way. And they know that. So walking behind me, keeping your eyes open all the time. And it's not being paranoid. These are like being in reality, knowing that it's better to be safe than sorry. And just that simple common sense of knowing that it's better to be safe than sorry. If they see something before I do, they tell me immediately, right? So we're all on guard and we're all part of it. We're proactive. We are not just sitting ducks, victims, waiting for whatever, God forbid. For me, this is all things just to deal with children. It keeps them calm. It keeps them in the hero mode, and not hero, they're going to run out and save everybody, but hero in terms of I'm not letting this beat me. I'm not a victim, right? This is a part of someone's history. So we're in it right now, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be afraid of. And it kind of helps keep everybody on a level of reality without going into weird fantasies or being naive or something like this. I don't know. It might sound strange to people, but this is how we've dealt with it for the past 20 years. I can continue going on and on, but let Gilla speak before I go on.
First of all, Chava and Rivkah, I'm so happy to see you both. And I pray for you and worry about you just like my family every day. Chava, as I'm listening to you, I'm crying, because your reality is you're such a mama bear, and this reality is so empowering. I'm not going to say much today, you know, between you and Rivkah. I think you have so much to offer to everyone, and I'm just sitting here in awe listening to you both. Rivkah, you always have such practical tips for everyone, and you haven't even started yet on the kids. So I'm going to be very brief, and then I'm going to hand it back to both of you. My voice, thank you, Rivkah helped me. I've been sick, so my voice is much better today, but I'm drinking tea and honey the whole day just not to lose it. Just like I reached out to Rivkah when I was sick, it's a reminder to us, no matter where we live, the US, Europe, Africa, Israel, in times like this, we need to reach out to each other. And that is also part of doing. We have to do. So I'm in the US, but I have a lot of family. I lived many years in Israel. I have a lot of family. And I happen to have 2 sons in Israel who were called up as reservists as well. So I am a mother of Chayalim as well. And I'm far away. So what do? You do, just like Rivkah said. In the early days, I was calling people, talking to people, and reaching out to get certain help to some of the Miluimnikim. And it's what calmed me down, and my family got involved, and people who are more doers and have more clout and louder and more connection, took it over. And just today I was talking to someone and I'm like, wow, it mushroomed. In those early days, everybody told me, go home and, finish crocheting your baby blanket. And I'm like, I'm crocheting while I'm talking to you. We're mamas, we're mothers, we're immas. So it's doing. And doing can sometimes be moving mountains, connecting to people and doing stuff. Doing can be reaching out to your friends that you're thinking of them. It can be mobilizing people to pray for them. Doing can be reaching out for help. And I think that's so important. We tend to bear everything. We do everything. And we are running on empty. We need to fill our cup as mothers. How do we do that? We have tips, and we'll get to herbs as well. But one of the ways that we do that is we reach out to our sisters, our mothers, our mothering circle. So I'm just very, very quickly sharing some of these things, and especially for those of you who are not in Israel. But, we wake up in the morning and that's what consumes us, and we go to bed and that consumes us and our kids as well. So I'm handing it back to you because I feel like I'm more or less a fill-in and a bystander today. Rivkah and Chava, it's back to you.
Well, I think reaching out to the sisters is important, and men need to do it as well. And sometimes men really don't recognize that. And women have an easier time recognizing that, which doesn't mean it's easy. It just means in general, it tends to be easier for women to reach out to sisters than for the men to reach out. And so, one thing one of our neighbors did for my husband is he said he invited him over one evening. Once, the siren was over and it had been quiet for a little while. And he said, why don't you come over and we'll study some Torah together? If it's fine with your wife, if it's okay with the kids, if everything's okay. Because obviously you don't want to take a man away from his family, protecting his wife and his children when they're needed. So, and it may be that at that time it wasn't okay. And I would have said, no, it's not okay. In fact, that's happened since, where I said, no, not right now. But there are times when it is okay. And then he goes and he fills his cup and he talks with other men and connects. I went out today and had a massage and some body work, some craniosacral therapy, which was really, really important. And I even took a drive by myself another day and went in search of hamburgers. And it turns out in this country during wartime, dairy places remain open, but meat places do not. That's not a rule. There's no law. That's just my observation. I'll tell you if that changes. So I learned all kinds of interesting things about this country on my little drive alone, but just getting out, taking a drive for, an hour on my own, because you really do need to fill your cup, because as parents, and that's what I'm hearing from a lot of parents. I've tried to have as many conversations as I can, but I'm also taking care of my family. So I'm not as available to the community as, I would have been otherwise. But I'm hearing a common refrain among parents, and I know Chava will speak to this as well, I hope. That parents are coming to me saying, my kids are confused. They don't understand what's going on. They're upset, they're afraid, they're sad, they're angry, they're whatever it is. And I also don't know what's going on. I'm sad and I'm afraid and I'm angry and I'm scared. And so there's nothing I can do. They just act up and they're out of control and they have to deal with themselves because I can't do anything. And I feel like I'm always the one who's super harsh out of the three of us. So I'm just going to go for it now again this time. But if you don't know what to do for your kids, you better find out, because they don't have any other parent to guide them through this super scary time but you. You better find it out. Okay? We're all scared. We all don't understand what's going on. We all have all our feelings, but that doesn't excuse us from the responsibility of guiding our little people through the experience. So, and people were really upset. They closed schools, and school has kind of been the fallback. Like, well, the school will handle it. The school will deal with it. But I'm telling you right now, the school can never replace the parent, ever. And no matter what, people say, but they have special, psychologists and social workers and people, they don't know what's going on either. They're just as confused and scared as you are. They might have some extra training, which is great. And ideally, if you don't have the skills you need, you should ask those people for some tips and pointers so that you can guide your children through it, because that's really what's best. That's what's best. Because when it comes down to being locked into a tiny space with your whole family, there are no social workers, no psychologists, no one else who's going to be in there with you. You have to know how to navigate that situation with, aplomb and savviness and kindness and clarity. And that situation could last a very long time. Some people were barricaded in their houses, in their rooms for, 21 hours plus. So you got to figure that out. I want to pass this over to Chava, but I just want to tell the dead chicken story. I don't know if I've told it here before, but the dead chicken story is so important. It's so important because basically the bottom line, I'm going to give you the answer before I even start the story. The answer is, say what you see. That's the answer. That's the answer. Okay? To avoid hysteria, to avoid living in your fear, getting in that tornado whirlwind that Chava was talking about so beautifully, say what you see. Okay? So once upon a time, we have chickens, thanks to Chava. We started our own flock of chickens. Once upon a time, my husband was praying and the chickens were making a heck of a lot of noise. And then they stopped making noise. And my husband looks out and starts screaming. He runs downstairs and he tells us that there are dead chickens everywhere. All over the yard, dead chickens everywhere. There was a dog carried off a chicken, and there's dead chickens everywhere. Okay, so this was traumatic. It's not a war, but this predates the war. So for us, it was fairly traumatic to understand that our whole flock had been decimated in an instant by a dog, and especially for the children, and they all have names and they are our friends and pets. And okay, so I started by telling my husband, all of them? And he said, all of them. They're all dead. There are chicken parts everywhere, all over the yard, chicken blood, chicken everything. He starts describing the scene. I said, stop, we have kids here, hang on. Where did you see the chickens in the yard? Now he's losing patience with me. What do you mean? They're all over the yard. They're all, so, okay. I turned to my kids and I said, listen, Abba saw our chickens all over the yard, but we don't know. He's like, what do you mean we don't know? Like, we don't know. We're going to take 3 deep breaths. We're going to go outside. We're going to look. We're going to assess the situation, because already my kids are like getting gloves and getting things. And we're just going to assess the situation. And we're going to see what we need to do. We'll decide after we assess the situation. We go outside and there are no dead chickens. Zero dead chickens on the ground. Zero. In fact, all of the chickens had hopped up onto their roost in their cage, where they were quietly, patiently waiting to make sure it was safe to come down. One chicken was killed. One. And that chicken was on the ground behind the cage in a place where my husband could not have seen it. And the dog did rip it in half and take half of the chicken. And there was blood going up the stairs and whatever. That's what we saw when we took 3 deep breaths and assessed the situation. My husband is a very sane person, very calm, level-headed, good guy. But when my husband was afraid, he started to see our whole flock decimated in his mind. And he started to see the worst case scenario so clearly, as if he had seen it with his eyes. But he did not see it with his eyes. I repeat, all the chickens except one were alive and still are alive. Okay? So to avoid maybe seeing things that aren't there, and this is what I also tell my children when Chava talks about, we don't know who could come in the house at night, and we don't know whatever. We need to say what is actually, in actuality, happening using all of our senses. Has anyone invaded our house now? No. Look outside the window. I tell my kids, it's dark in the mamad. It's scary. And you lock yourself in and you close in the safe room, and you shut the metal windows, and it's dark but then when the siren's over, I say, come, look outside. The sky is blue. I see a blue sky. I see fluffy white clouds or chemtrails. I see our favorite herbs growing in the garden. I hear birds chirping. And that can help ground us. What's happening is on the internet, a lot of pictures are going around and movies are going around and things are going around. People see them and think that it's going to happen to them. And at the slightest provocation, a sound outside your window, an alarm or whatever, boom, that horrible thing has already happened, except it hasn't. It never happened. It happened in your mind. So to get out of your mind, look with your eyes, listen with your ears, smell with your nose, smell a flower, engage your senses, pet the feral cats in your yard or your chickens or your child's head. Okay. Finger something. I went to the bathroom and fingered, yeah, you heard me call you, the cat's in the window now. I fingered the lice comb because it turns out a couple of my kids have lice during this crisis. Just to remember, the crisis, the real crisis at this moment is the lice. That's real. And that's a manageable crisis. Lice I can manage. Okay, so Chava.
Yeah, so exactly. Looking at the reality really does bring you down because it can get crazy. So another thing that on the same level, if we ever want to watch something on the internet, right, it will never be some violent, action-packed, we don't need any more of that stuff. And it doesn't help the imagination. It certainly doesn't help the adrenals, and it doesn't help the brain. It doesn't have anything calming to it. So one thing that we've taken to watching sometimes is I Love Lucy. Beverly Hillbillies. If you guys remember any of these from the 80s, they're sweet, they're funny, they're simple, there's nothing violent, not like just the cutest little things, and not a lot, you know, one little thing here and there, but it kind of gets their mind off of any kind of stress. It helps us laugh. We all watch it together, so it's a family thing, and then we talk about that one funny thing that they said or did for like the rest of the day. It sticks in your head and it makes you laugh again and then again and then again, and it really helps kind of ground you, bring you down, and remember that, you know, life doesn't have to be all this craziness. Sometimes it's just simple, black and white, and cute. And a big thing for me is food, and we'll get into herbs and perhaps vitamins and all of these things, because when you're in these stressful situations, for most people, thank God, it is an acute situation. It comes, you go through it, and you get out of it and deal with all the after effects, but it is an actual acute situation. Because we have lived in this situation for the past 20 years, it's not acute. It is something that is ongoing. It is chronic. And I can't deal with it as an acute illness, or however you might want to put that, because the body burns through nutrients when you are in a stressful situation. So for me, food has a super medicinal role in our everyday lives. I do not allow any junk food. And yes, I am extreme. I'm not telling anyone how to eat. Don't eat like Chava. Don't do what Chava says. I'm telling you what we do. There is no crap food in our house, because I know that it has an effect on the adrenals, on the body, on the nervous system, and I can't have extra. I just, no more. We have to deal with outside. That's enough for me. So on the inside of the house, we have fruit, smoothies, of course, celery juice. You know all about my celery juice. I have not had celery juice in 2 weeks because I have no access to it, but I'm okay with that because it's gotten us into a position where we are okay with everything still. So fruit, oats is huge for us. We have oatmeal practically every morning. There's the milky oats, which is already a nervine. We know it can bring down the stressful situation, and it's calming. Any form of oats. I even give my horses oat straw. It is just an amazing tonic. Again, tonic, because we're in this cycle all the time. And it really, I find it really grounding, oats. And beans. I'm very into beans. They're also a very heavy grounding food. Lots of protein, nutrient dense, cheap, easy to make, versatile. I don't have to put too much thought into meals. And this is really important when you're perhaps running back and forth into the mamad or sirens or whatever stupid things. I can let it boil, simmer on the stove for hours, and I don't have to worry about, did I burn it? Did I forget about it? It's the longer it cooks, the better it is. Those are 3 things that are really, really big for us: fruit, oats. And when I say fruit, I mean smoothies, really, with greens and stuff in it, and beans. That's how we I keep the diet really simple. Again, no junk food, because I don't want synthetics. And there's a vibration to food. And if it's synthetic and it is filled with artificial everything, bad oils, bad sugars, bad colors, all these things, it's going to have an effect on the vibration of the body. So I want things that give really good energy to the brain and to the adrenals and to the nervous system and to the immune system. If our immune system is burning through because of stress, all the nutrients that we put in it, even if you eat really good and really clean and healthy, whatever that means, it's burning through not a normal day worth of vitamins and minerals. It needs extra. Okay, so constantly putting it back in and using your food as medicine is something, a tool that I've used over and over again, and I've seen the results. It's not a, from today to tomorrow kind of thing. It's something, again, I've used this as a tonic year after year, week after week. So if you're in an acute situation, like right now for people, do it. But know that it even helps even more if you practice this day by day by day. And one last thing before we get to whatever you want to add, herbs and things, is B12. B12, all the Bs are amazing, but B12 specifically in these kind of situations helps deal with stress. It works in the brain, and it works in the liver, and it works with the adrenals and the immune system. I have my kids taking that practically every day. And I really, really see that it works. It helps on a level of not by itself, right? Of all these other things mixed in together. It's real big thought process of making sure everything is getting to where it needs to go. And B12 for us has been a big part of that too.
Yeah, let's talk about setting up the mamad. I think that's really important because so setting up the mamad is a really great activating thing for people to not feel helpless. It gives some people something to do that is actually meaningful. Like that's ideal, is you want to do something meaningful. So when this all began and it looked like we were in it for the long haul, and it still looks like we're in it for the long haul, the question was, what can we do to make our mamad a more comfortable, livable space? And I engaged all the children right away. What do we do? And my older kids said, well, I want this garbage out of here, and started moving things out that we didn't need. And well, we're going to need some mattresses, because if we need to be here in the middle of the night or whatever, we want a place to lay down. And so mattresses moved in, and okay, well, what's, how many pillows and how many, and then what do we need to feel really comfortable? So Chava's right about the food and all of that, and I'm not disagreeing with her. And that being said, we do have a case of emergency Oreos in our mamad by special request of our children. So Chava's 100% right again, but you can still have an emergency case of Oreos. And it was really funny because my sister called to check on me, on all of us. And, I was telling her, well, I'm eating Oreos right now. And she said, well, after I'm done talking to you, I also am going to be eating some Oreos. This is not a commercial for Oreos. They're bad for you. They're crap. They're absolutely terrible. However, having some kind of comfort food, especially in an acute situation, unlike for Chava, who's really long-term living like this. But for an acute situation, to kind of make that transition a little bit more fun and easy for the kids, we did decide to bring that in. And it doesn't have to be Oreos. And I'm not plugging Nabisco or anything against it. Bad, evil, totally bad. But maybe yours is Chips Ahoy or who knows what. But that being said, I also certainly looked for snack foods that my kids would love, that are mineral rich. And my favorite snack food for kids and adults is nori, seaweed. Seaweed is so fun. The kids love it. It takes up no space in the mamad. It keeps forever. Once you open it, it'll start to get soft. So you got to put it back in a bag, or seal it up somehow. But my kids love it, and so it's actually a special treat for them. It's like, oh yay, can't wait till the siren comes and we can eat all that seaweed in the mamad. And it could be, for you, it's peanut butter. It could be, we also have that in our mamad. We put down peanut butter and tortillas so that everyone could have a peanut butter roll up tortilla. If we get stuck in there for a while, we need the protein, and so that was fun to have there. And the other thing that, this is really decadent, but you can do it too, is we have a kum, a hot water heater on Shabbat, and we decided to bring it into the mamad. and bring in some mugs and bring in some tea bags with yummy teas. And if we're in the mamad and like people are freaking out, we've got like different tea blends for sore throat or upset tummies. We've got your regular run of the mill, if guests come over and want to hang out in the mamad, they might like a black tea or whatever. I mean, we have a whole tea bar in the mamad. And yeah, it's silly. It's not, you don't need it. But if you can, we're in it for the long haul. Might as well take some things to make it comfortable and relaxing as much as possible. So we have a tea bar down there. We've got, let me see. Smoothies also we use, but that isn't the mechanics of doing that in mamad aren't so easy. So you got to be out of the mamad to do the smoothies or the juicing, that kind of thing. And also just having some quick foods, like if you're getting a lot of sirens back to back, you can have some quick ideas on hand. It could be that you'll just, do some pasta and that's it. Because maybe you really don't have time. You're running back and forth and there's so many fires to put out, literally and figuratively. But think about those meals. So I was using my pressure cooker when we had a bunch of sirens or whatever. It's like, well, I have an electric pressure cooker. I set the timer, I put it there. Yes, the electricity could go out, but we can't account for everything. And that being said, I can run back and forth as much as I like, and that sucker will automatically turn off when dinner's done. And I do all kinds of things like lentil soups, which are hearty, which have lots of protein from the lentils. I use Alton Brown's lentil soup recipe, which involves half a kilo of lentils in it. So it's very rich and nourishing and grounding. That's another thing that Chava talked about, which is why I was looking for a hamburger actually, is any food that really grounds you. So you want to be able to still be light enough, you don't want to be eating to gluttony so that you can't be agile in your movements. However, living off juices while all these things are happening, it just can get you in this airy kind of state. You want really grounding foods that are high in protein, that could be meats, that could be lentils and beans, any of those things, stick to it. And the oats that Chava said, that was the first thing I did. I have oat straw in the house. And once this all began, I actually got a huge 2-liter pot, put oat straw in, put a few other herbs in that I like, put it on the stove on a simmer, and that simmered for hours as we ran back and forth and did whatever we needed to do. And it was ready when we were ready. And we had nice hot tea. We added some honey, and then we strained it all and put it into the fridge. And then we had iced tea, for the next day. And that oat straw is such a great nervine. It's for frayed nerves, the herb oats. Both the milky oats, which is the top of oat straw, the seed, as well as the oats, it's for frayed nerves where you just feel like exactly how everyone's feeling, on edge, just on your last nerve, totally frayed, totally frazzled. The slightest sound makes you jump or wince. That kind of thing is where oats or a tincture of milky oats, which I also wildcraft that. So we have a first aid kit in the mamad of tinctures, and that is certainly in there. As well as the herb shepherd's purse and yarrow, which would be used for any kind of bleeding or acute bleeding situation that could happen in the mamad. So, if you have kids that are prone to bloody noses, or sometimes, especially in a situation where people are stressed, this could bring about bloody noses or, something like that, some kind of bleeding hemorrhoids, all sorts of like bleeding issues can get aggravated through stress and that sort of thing. And having some herbs, some hemostatic herbs, which stop the bleeding on hand, are really, really helpful. Also, people can get cut running to and from the mamad. In the beginning, the majority of hospitalizations in Israel were from those being injured on the way to their mamad, from running and falling and cutting their toe on a metal bar or whatever it is. And so hemostatic herbs are really, really great. Shock. So a lot of times the fallout for the children will be upset bellies, nausea, headaches, sharp pains in the head, things like that. And so we're looking at herbs like skullcap, valerian, St. John's wort for nerve and also joint and muscle, really. But for relaxation, for tenseness, we're looking at different soothing stomach herbs. So if you took our herbal first aid course, you'll know what they are. And if you haven't, you should take it. But we're talking about like mallow, for really upset stomach, mallow, which can replace slippery elm, which is not so accessible here. Different soothing herbs. Chamomile is a good one, very soothing and very child friendly. Different cranial herbs like a white willow bark for different types of headaches. The details of the headaches, like different types of headaches might require a different type of herb, but those things. And then the medicinal use of alcohol. And I'll end with this and give it to Chava again. I have a friend who picked his own grapes. He used my tincture press to press the grapes. He made alcohol. He made an alcoholic beverage that's 46% alcohol. Really, kol hakavod to Oren for doing that. And he brought me a little bottle. And so I was just having frayed nerves, and I was doing all these things, and I was treating my children for shock, and I had a couple children who were vomiting, and I've got the kids with the lice, and I was spread really thin. And I went over to his little bottle of alcohol and took a swig, one swig. And I will tell you, I just calmed right the heck down. Alcohol, it has medicinal properties. So I'm not advocating that anybody go get drunk or tipsy or in any way dull the senses that we so desperately need to be aware of what's going on around us. That's not what I'm saying. You can't do that. That's bad. But having a shot glass or a small amount of alcohol can help relax frayed nerves, help kind of bring you back into your center. It was used for shock in our grandparents' generation. It was used for fainting. It was used for all sorts of things. Even the smell of alcohol, even inhaling it, could bring someone back when they had passed out or fainted. So don't discount the medicinal benefits of having some good quality alcohol available to you during these times.
Rivkah, can I say something, Chava? So I'm listening to you both, and some of the things you're discussing for the mamad and prep is reminiscent for many people in Florida and the, lower states, southern states, eastern states, hurricane times. So hurricane prep, and, we've lived here a long time and we've seen many a hurricane. So essentially every year, we're always prepared. When COVID happened and people were like, we have to stock up, we're like, we stock up all the time. So some of the things that are helpful, because, I don't worry too much about most of the hurricanes, but I worry about afterwards when there's no power. So essentially we're talking non-perishables and things, as natural mothers, we don't usually buy plastic water bottles if we don't have to, we use reusable. But when it comes to something like this, you have to be super practical. So I always have a case of plastic water bottles in the house, in a place, wherever, And I always have, you can call it whatever you want, your bug out bag, your backpack, your first aid kit, your diaper, you call it what you want, but you're going to have a box or a bag of your herbs, of the supplements like Chava mentioned, B12, and I was thinking magnesium. Rivkah, you have your water urn in the mamad, things like that. So one of the things that I always used to have on hand was I used to make the kids, they used to drink one of these fizzy magnesium drinks. There's a bunch of them on the market. If someone comes to me and says, I need to increase magnesium, I'm not going to suggest take something with, synthetic flavor and a synthetic magnesium and take that every day. But when you're stressed and you need something to calm everyone down and you want something that tastes good and is almost like a treat, one of those fizzy drinks can be really helpful. So many companies make them today. Cocoa, even though it has caffeine, cocoa has all the benefits of like a dark chocolate, and kids love that. So I would always have cocoa on hand, mix it with mushroom powder, and you got a super booster over there, Jerky, for those who are meat eaters, you can keep that. I always have I have a pull-out pantry of canned goods, and I replenish and replace, and I, once we're done with hurricane season, I used to give to a food bank. Nowadays, after COVID and what happens all over the world, the wars, what's going on just happened in Israel, I keep them. So there's always, whether it's chickpeas, beans, corn, even canned fruit. If you can your own, even better. But for those of you that just need to get something, you can get organic canned goods today, BPA free. Have a few on hand. It can literally save your time and money. Have them in the mamad. When you go in with your family, I also always, hurricane, we always had special foods, always have popcorn, always have certain treats. Make sure they're treats that align and resonate with you, but things that your kids know are for special times, So have them ready there. They don't go bad. And it's something that the kids can really look forward to. When it comes to herbs, I quickly want to add skullcap. I think I had one close to me, but I don't see it now. I carry skullcap in my first aid kit. I homeschool, farm school. Everybody knows that skullcap, whenever I help kids, my own kids are the best example. The first thing when my son got hurt not too long ago, he had a run-in with a rooster. And before I even looked at what he had, I gave him skullcap because he was in a panic. And he wouldn't even have let me look at it looked like a lot of blood. And it was a nasty peck, but it was a peck. But there was a lot of blood. And he was in a panic. So I gave him a dropper full of skullcap. He loves it. He asked for another one. I gave him another one. Skullcap is safe for kids. And that's one of the things that I love about it. It's very kid friendly. And after a few minutes, he was very happy to let me have a look and to treat his wound. And it's just something I carry all the time with me. It can be taken long term. You can make it as a tea. You can add it to teas. I'm talking about American skullcap here. And the other thing is it is also helpful for sleep. So it's something that's so easy to keep a tincture bottle in the mamad, or to put teas there as well and add them to other teas. So yeah, as you both talking, I'm thinking, wow, hurricane prep, and what do we do here in the US? And, things that can just be helpful, and where you go in your mind, for things that are non-perishable and things that, your family loves. So I also learned from experience from when we had no electricity many times. If I buy things that my kids don't like, it doesn't really help. So I buy like chickpeas and, canned corn and certain things. Oh, this one likes that. This one likes that. So buy things that your family are going to eat and do like anyway, and have them. You don't have to have the whole of, Costco or whatever in your mamad, but have a few things to get you through, at least a good few hours. And just keep them there all the time, or replenish as needed.
And special toys or special things. So we went out to get like kinetic sand. or other things that the kids could play with on Shabbat where they don't have to write. And then we got paints, and the kids are going like, oh, well, it'll be great when the siren happens because then we can play with the kinetic sand. And that's great because, you know, we want them to have something to look forward to and something to do. The other thing that Gilla could have mentioned, should have probably better than I should have talked about, I think, is motherwort, which is a good herb if it's your herb. It's not my herb, so that isn't my go-to, but motherwort in general is good for the mother, the father, and the children. It's called Leonardus Cardaca, blind-hearted, and it gives you courage. And so that's also very good. And other calming herbs like passion flower and things like that. Again, our herbal first aid course will give you more insight about herbs. So we recommend that you take it. Okay, Chava.
One thing that no one mentioned was Rescue Remedy. That one has always been around. Super helpful and calming and works almost instantly. We also have stocked our mamad with bottles of water and canned goods and all those things that you talked about. Games, board games and different things that they like to play, and books. It's so calming to have everyone, you know, cuddle around, find a chair or a couch or whatever it is, and they all climb on top of each other and we read stories. That just really, really brings everyone together, and you all end up having, you know, you're breathing the same and your heartbeat comes down and everyone's really connecting. Let's see what else.
Singing.
Yeah, we're not singers, but go ahead.
Singing, you know, Kol Haolam Kulo Gesher Tsar Me'od. You know, sometimes we're also not either, but there have been times, you know, in extreme stress that it's like, let's sing. Singing will bring you courage. It's another tool in the toolbox.
One thing that you touched on was projects with the kids. We do this a lot. I have 6 boys, thank God, and there's a lot of energy going around. And if we are stuck inside, which we've been going very stir crazy, but anyway, getting that energy out. And so my oldest happens to be a big workout person. He's been doing it for years and years. And so he gets all the little kids to do what they can in terms of push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, you know, lifting little weights, whatever it is. He just puts them up to it. Yeah, give me 10 of those, 20 of it. And it just gets everyone all like little soldiers. And it gets them out of their body, you know, out of their head and into their body. And that really, really helps. I've noticed, because then the laughter starts up and then the competition starts up and they've forgotten anything that might have been upsetting them. And so we know that works, and that's something we do every time.
Maybe you should talk about making weapons too. I like that one. We've done that too.
So you talk about it. I don't know what I'm allowed to say here.
One of my kids said, you know what? We can just get a wooden board and we could hammer nails into it and create a weapon with that. And so that's how they spent some of their time.
As far as I'm concerned, you can say whatever you like.
Okay.
Not a problem for me. I come from a family where my father's religion was Meir Kahane saying every Jew at 22. That was it.
There you go.
So he said, I always like to see Jews in uniform. He said, I don't care what kind of uniform. It could be the guy who checks your ticket on the bus or gives you a ticket to the movie theater. Jews in uniform. That was his religion.
It's
so,
very
yeah,
empowering.
Not a problem for me.
It's very empowering, especially for the younger boys. You know, and especially if their fathers are in reserve or their older brothers are in reserve, like to be able to contribute by making weapons and protecting their family in some way. We've talked about gender roles before, and this is another great time to bring it up. There really are gender roles, and in wartime is a great place to recognize that. So men have a need to protect their families, which is great. And women have a need to protect their children. And everyone kind of has a need to protect one another, but it's all kind of structured. It's all just kind of naturally falls into place. So giving, oh yeah, good. Great way to go. We have a comment that someone's son made a potato gun with a PVC pipe. That's great. That's exactly what we want, because we want to not feel helpless. We want to feel empowered. And the reality is, we may need to go to hand combat, and certainly we're on a level of spiritual combat. So yes, making weapons and knowing that we can do it, there's nothing silly about it. It's literally what we're supposed to be doing at wartime to protect our lives, our homes, our families.
Yeah, so we, you know, living on the farm, the children have always known that every farm tool is a potential defensive weapon. Shovels, rakes, hoes, even just the handles of all of those things, baseball bats, right? I'm not going to go into everything, but using your imagination and, you know, focusing on different areas of the body and what might cause the most damage. And then the children just sort of take it from there. Like you said, with nails and all those fun things that are out there, hammering and screwing, and they come up with their own stuff. Slingshots, bow and arrows, you know, all of these things from... Go ahead.
Yeah, I've talked with adults who go, well, I don't have a gun, so and there's nothing I can do. It's like, no, this is for adults as well. You know, I took my kitchen knives downstairs, you know, and slept with them. That was the first thing I did. And I went over with my children how kitchen knives can be used for things other than slicing bread. You know. So you're not helpless. You don't need a weapon. You don't need government permission to carry a gun in order to defend yourself. You have plenty of defensive, you know, postures that you can take with things just laying around your house or in your yard.
Yeah. I'd like to add, as a woman, just in general, you know, I've done Krav Maga. I don't remember very much. Mommy brain, you know, 30-something years, but I did a good, probably 10 years ago, I did a Krav Maga as well. But I remember I learned something really useful from the instructor, because I remember saying, I'm not remembering this. And he said he tells every single girl and woman that he meets to always carry broken pencils in your pocket or in your purse. And a broken pencil. And he said, this is for those instances where, you know, you're in close contact. And a broken pencil is not considered a weapon. So you can carry it with you anywhere you go. And it can really help give you a minute or 5 to get away when used correctly.
Also pepper spray. That's something that's always with us.
I was just going to say that. And I was going to say also that pepper spray, again, you don't need to be reliant on purchasing pepper spray. You can make your own pepper spray, and you can look on the internet for recipes and how to do that. So you're not, you know, with just common things you have in your kitchen or you can easily get at the grocery store or grow in your yard. So it's really important. What is that, Gilla? Oh, light.
Solar light. So these are the ones for kids. But you know, you can get regular ones. I just brought my son's. He always has next to his bed solar. So again, that's the kind of thing that years ago, before they even had the nice ones, we used to get for hurricane prep. So again, you have a few hours and it's quiet and you can put them in the sun, and then you bring them in the mamad And even if there's no electricity, you might not have a lot of light, but it's a really, calming light. And kids, if you get something that looks like for little kids, they have their own, and that can give them something to do as well. Did you put your lamp out in the sun today? Put it back, put their name on, and it can create a really nice atmosphere with low lights. So again, that's something that we use hurricane prep that I thought could be helpful.
Yeah, when this first happened, I went and bought a bunch of Ner Neshama, the Yarzai candles, the 24, 48, whatever candles that you get really cheaply. Because if you do lose electricity, you're going to want candles. And on top of that, we put in like a rock lamp that just had nice ambient lighting, because that harsh light in the mamad, if you haven't covered it, and you aren't spending a lot of time in there, it's not fun. It just doesn't feel good, especially in the middle of the night, if you need to bring your family in there and everyone wants to go back to sleep, and it's Shabbat and you can't turn it off. So find, some nice ambient lighting on Shabbat or something like that, or light an extra candle as we did in the mamad on Shabbat, so that you have, some light there that will help you get around. And then we placed some more kind of strategic night lights around the area so that we could run with children safely. And also, I know this is obvious, but our minds are really on other things right now. Clear a path to the mamad or to your safe room or whatever, from your bedrooms or from other rooms. Because, if you're like my house and you've got a project going where you were working on building a closet and taking another one down, and there's like planks of wood and balagan all over the place, and you don't want to be stepping over that and tripping over that and having kids try and pick their way through, the hammer and the screws and all that stuff when they're running really quickly. So clear a path from all directions so that it's, safe and easy to get to where you need to go. And also breathing. I touched on it, but it's so important. That can stop that tornado, the hurricane that Chava talked about, that's spiraling out of control in its tracks. It's so simple and we don't do it. But anytime we're feeling stress or pain or whatever, I tell the kids, breathe out. And I say, blow. And I put my hand in front of their mouths and I say, I want to feel it. Because in order to blow that hard that I can feel it on my hand, they have to take a really deep breath to do that. And just that act of the really deep breathing for kids, it's like, I see people talk to each other, well, just breathe, well, just relax. But no, like that's not constructive. You can't just do that. When you get nervous, you start shallow breathing, you risk hyperventilation. That just blow out so I can feel it on my hand. Everything else falls into place, that deep breath, which is so good.
Ladies, maybe it's time to conclude. We can continue the discussion, of course, but for the folks out there who'll be seeing this on Rumble, we want to keep it more or less within a time frame that they can relate to. And that would be about where it's a little bit over an hour. So I want to ask you if you could each make a concluding statement remember, that's for the viewers, because all over the world, people are dealing with, in one form or another, the traumatic situations you're describing. So your advice isn't just for people in Israel, but look, the whole world's on fire pretty much more and more everywhere. Your advice is good. Could you each make some sort of a concluding, give a hug and a kiss to the poor wretches out there who urgently need the help and advice that you have to offer?
Rivkah?
Do something. Don't be helpless. Do something. We made cookies and we delivered cookies. We saw there were other parents who were nervous and whatever. And we decided, my kids and I, to deliver cookies to the houses of parents who were nervous and to the people who were volunteering for guard duty and the soldiers. And at the end of driving around, in the pouring rain, giving cookies. When we got back home, my daughter said, "That was the best day ever." I don't know. I can't, I mean, that's essentially it. You know, it's the total opposite of people who feel unempowered, helpless, afraid. They felt empowered. And what's more, my 7-year-old said, "You know, mommy, people," because she heard people talking about maybe leaving Eretz Israel. And she said, "People are thinking of leaving Eretz Israel, but we can't leave because it's our land. And if we go away, they'll just come in and take it." So profound.
Exactly it. Yeah, a big thing is doing for others, even if it's just praying or thinking of or making a phone call or making something, a picture or knitting or whatever it might be. Doing for others really helps bring it all back into perspective, that you're not alone. We're all going through this together and we're all there for each other. And, you know, just that thought, then it really, really helps the spiral.
I think no matter where you are in the world, take the time to get to know a few herbs and add them into your, repertoire, your routine. Be comfortable with them, use them, and make sure that you keep them. If you're in Israel, have a little bag of herbs in your mamad, tinctures, teas, whatever it is. In the US, in Europe, anywhere that there is, stuff's going on all over the world. Like Lowell said, the world is on fire. So we need to make sure we just always have a little something on us to help calm ourselves and our kids, to take care of minor scrapes, minor bumps. Stuff happens, life happens. Be prepared. We always need to eat. We always need a snack, and we always need a good herb.
So on that note, we want to thank, I'm talking about our viewers and listeners when this will be up on Rumble and our live studio audience, Rivkah and Chava and Gilla, for sharing with us from their priceless wisdom based on many years of study, research, and practice, how to deal with traumatic situations. And God willing, a month from now, we will be regathering to review what happened the last month and get more good advice on dealing, not just dealing with traumatic situations, but the morning after, which weeping may tarry for the night, but joy cometh in the morning, as in Psalms it says. And hopefully that morning will come soon for Israel and all humanity. All right, so it's what's Wednesday. Shalom from Jerusalem, the northern Negev, lower Galilee, and Boca Raton, and we will see you all in a month. Now, we're done recording, and what I'm going to do is I have to go pick up our younger daughter. She works down the hill at Super Deal, so she's not supposed to walk home alone, which is a good idea. And any time with dark streets for a young lady, especially in our area, there's a sort of isolated, nothing happens, but nothing ever happens until it happens. So I have to go get her. So what I'm going to do is, we're not recording anymore, ladies. Well, I see they're all ladies.